Hey, I'm Johnny Lynch, that's Glennon, and we're here to examine how tropes bleed across movies, video games, and TV shows. Welcome to Dystropia. And this episode is That Which Could Have Been.
Yeah, what could have been?
What could have been?
Had we but dared to dream?
Exactly. It's a bit of a weird topic, but it was one I was thinking about last night, and the amount of ones for all three video games, TV shows, movies, the amount of stuff that's been blocked for years and years and years, or stuff that's been pitched and just never came to fruition is really interesting.
Development hell.
Yeah, that is my notable trope for video games, is just development hell.
It applies to films as well, man.
It does. It applies to
films that would fit into it as well.
It applies to absolutely everything. To kick off with movies, then the development hell one for me there is Mountains of Madness.
So explain what development hell is. So people might actually not know what it is.
There's a whole kind of genre of tropes that go with this. There's going to be lots of executive meddling. There's going to be lots of things changing mid-development. There's going to be lots of things getting just held up. A lot of times, if there's a creator out there who wants to make something, it's their passion project. They'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing for something for years. Terry Gilliam's a good one for this. He was doing the Adventures of Baron Monte Cristo, Baron Munchausen, all these kind of things where he just had this idea in his head and he was trying for years and years and years to get it to come to fruition. And everything conspired against him. Everything made it go wrong. Including what's the one where Heath Ledger died while he was making it?
The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
Thank you.
But the Terry Gilliam one, actually, specifically, if you follow film news, you'll know that he after I think 17 or maybe 18 years of trying to get it could be 27 years of Don Quixote, trying to get Don Quixote made, and he finally got it made, and it has the guy who plays Kylo Ren,
Adam Driver.
Yes, he's basically in it, and it becomes the film instead of it's become this weird meta picture of like Adam Driver plays a film director who for his first film went and made the film the Adventures of Don Quixote, and when he goes back, like when he successfully decides to go back, because he always had fond memories of the place, and he goes back, and the local guy who he hired to play Don Quixote has gone insane and actually believes he's Don Quixote and believes Adam Driver is Sancho Panza and is like, we must go off on an adventure, and a whole load of shit happens, and it took them years to finally get it made, and it was shown at Cannes, I think it was this year.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys who initially said he was going to fund it and then pulled out of funding it has basically tied it up in court since.
Oh man,
like it's still fucking cursed, even though he's gotten it made.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like when we say about development hell, things taking a long time to come out, it's so funny how something at every step can hold it up. Because I remember years and years ago, Terry Gilliam trying to shoot this, and like his actors, like he was shooting outdoors, and the sky would change so ridiculously that he couldn't get two shots that looked the same. Everyone was getting sick. Oh man, it's so funny. For the Mountains of Madness, the one that Guillermo del Toro has been trying to make for probably more than 20 years now. It was before Hellboy, before everything. He was talking about this.
It was after he did Kronos.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he on paper, I'm like, oh, it's a big, like ridiculously well-known book. It's got so much stuff in it. It's the Cthulhu mythos. Everybody knows Cthulhu. Like I feel like it's always been primed to make this. But if you on paper, it has to be R-rated. Like he's saying I want to make an R-rated one, so that's against him. It's in the public domain, so it's not even like, and it would have to be a period movie. Like there's so much stuff against it that I can see producers just being like, "Ooh, absolutely not. No, we're not doing something that we can't have control over."
Apparently, it's just always been the budget, because the cost of actually doing anything otherworldly. Other eldritch horror is usually, it either looks shit, where you put a ton of money into it and it'll look good, but it's that ton of money that people are like, and like the thing is, he thought he might get away, like it might be easier to get it made because it was public domain, because he's able to go, you don't have to buy the license off anyone, this is just there, just take it and fucking make it. Like you can cast a bunch of unknowns in it, you could cast like a bunch of upcomers and Then
Oh.
it's the whole thing of we don't know who survives, we don't know who doesn't, blah blah blah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like there was like he had many arguments going for it, but yeah, it's
I have
as
to
you
believe
say, cursed.
I have to believe at this point it's him being precious as well. Like I have to believe that there was times where he could have just started it like, all right, we'll make it with like 50 million, like we'll make it as cheap as chips. And there must have been times where it's like, no, it's not my dream, it's not my dream. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's he kind of strike like he is a busy guy, and it's he just kind of wanted to do something with, like, Pacific Rim was pretty much born from him not being able to make At the Mountains of Madness, because it was like he wanted to do something with these kind of otherworldly,
Yeah.
extraplanar intelligences, and having, like he managed to turn it into a way that was commercially viable and marketable, like being able to go, yes, we can do this, because that's part of the other thing of, like, when you take something that's not in the public domain and you turn it into a film or a TV series or whatever, you can't patent the merchandise really, or it makes it a lot harder to patent the merchandise. You have to have very specific stuff on it to patent it, and that's what, like, that's where part of the struggle is that people, like, it's not that they're looking to invest because they can't make money on it, or because of the costume, which is the whole thing of, like, well, how do we make the money outside of it, because it's the secondary revenue generation that works on a lot of stuff.
I remember when Pacific Rim came out, and it slightly underperformed. Like, it didn't do quite as well as they hoped, so it meant that was another knock against him, that he was expecting this to be a runaway hit, and then he could make Mountains of Madness. And I was like, okay, so it didn't perform as well as he thought. And then then of course they started making the sequel, and I was like, well then, wait, what? So if it didn't perform well, why give him a sequel? But
yeah,
it's tried and tested.
And plus, it what you call it, it made money on DVD, and like I said, the secondary market. Like, a big thing with sci-fi and fantasy films is them being able to go, what can we market out of this? Because it's the like the amount of Lord of the Rings merchandise that came out, the amount of the MCU merchandise that's knocking around. Like, it's insane how much they do. Look at Star Wars. Like, every time they go to make a Star Wars film, and they're like, this film made $900 million, and it's like, right, and how much do they make in merchandising? Oh, about $5 billion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what they're looking at. They're not looking at the film so much as like when they're looking at it, they're going, is there an image there? Is there something visual that we can go, that's ours, and that's the thing. And he was probably the most likely person to get money off a big studio for the Mountains of Madness, because a Del Toro monster looks like no other director's work.
Yeah.
You look at it and you know that's Del Toro.
It is really, really nice, to the degree that when the Hobbit movies came out, I think we've talked about this before, but there's genuinely bits with the goblins where they get cut open and their guts spill out in a certain way, and I'm watching it going, Peter Jackson is doing Del Toro. Like, I'm actually watching these creatures move in a certain way. I'm like, I think he is actually saying, this is the vision I wanted, because I wanted Del Toro to actually do it.
To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if Del Toro came to visit him, and while he was there, Jackson was like, do you want to just direct some of it?
Yeah.
As an almost like look, I know you wanted to work on this, and I know because of contracts and shit you couldn't spend your time on it, but if you're here, if you want to do some B-unit stuff, or if you want to do some you know what I mean? It's although I've heard
a great quote from Del Toro where someone asked him, did you see the Hobbit movies? He's like, no, it is like visiting an ex-girlfriend. If she's doing well, you don't want to know about it, and if she's doing bad, you really don't want to know about it.
Yeah, it's kind of appreciate that. But yeah, maybe. Like, I mean, yeah, there is definitely scenes in it where it was completely like, this is how this would look, you know. Particularly, what's his name, Radagast. All the stuff around Radagast, that struck me as being very Del Toro looking.
One other notable trope in this kind of on the movies is the mid-development genre shift, which is something's already started, but oftentimes what happens is something comes out in the meantime, and then while you're making something, you got to start making changes. And the funniest one I was looking at was Suicide Squad. That it was supposed to be dark and gritty, and like, you know, Jared Leto was sending people dead rats and use condoms and all this horrible stuff. Like, he was really going for I'm the most insane person I can, like, this is going to be the darkest, edgiest thing ever. And then Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and it was like,
it wasn't just Guardians. It was also the trailer that was cut for Suicide Squad was originally done as like like it was done to Queen, and it was really upbeat and catchy, and it was like, I think it had all 4 funny lines they'd shot at that point were in the trailer, and then they were like, shit, the way people were reacting, going, look, it has a sense of humor, and it actually isn't taking itself 100% serious. This is what we want to see. And
it's
and
lime green and hot pink, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and Warner's were like, oh fuck, we gotta fix this. Like
the amount of reshoots they had to do, the amount of extra shots they had to do, and I had a quick look. There are 5 editors credited on it, which is an insane amount. The amount of shit they had to redo. It is such a mess of a movie. My favorite thing still is when the opening sequence happens and they're cutting into the prison. It comes up in the bottom like the name of the prison, but it's white writing over a white background, and there's no way to read it. And I was like, oh, you fucking idiots! How did you mess that up?
You literally double click, effects, stroke, 1 pixel, done.
Yeah,
like it's not exactly hard.
Oh man, like you can see them. You can see where they brought in music video editors and just said, look, make it as fucking wacky and in your face. Make it radical if you could.
Yeah.
But that's a particularly weird one. It's just got such an insane tone for the movie. I to the point that I can't see the original movie. Like other stuff, I can see where they went astray. But for Suicide Squad, I'm watching it going, I genuinely don't see where you guys started.
I'm hoping that this is the thing. This is the other thing. So just since we mentioned it, and we've mentioned it before, but this week, DC have released a load of stuff because San Diego Comic-Con is on.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So as we're recording this, San Diego Comic-Con is on this weekend. So they brought out the trailer for the Teen Titans TV series.
I love your sigh there. That was great.
So there's the trailer for the Teen Titans TV series.
Yep.
Where it has it shows Robin and it shows Raven needing help, and Robin shows up and kicks the shit out of a lot of guys. And at one point someone says like, oh, where's Batman? And he beats the shit out of all of them, even takes a gun off one of them and kills a few people, shoots a few of them, which isn't against canon.
Yeah,
it's only Batman who doesn't use guns. There is a specific thing in the opening arc of every time they've done Teen Titans. There's a specific thing in the first like 20% of it where it's all about Tim Drake trying to learn where the line is, because once he's let off his leash, he's just so fucking angry that he just goes to town on people.
Yep.
And that's a standard thing. It was in the 2003 animated series. It was in the 2005, I want to say, comic run. That's kind of like the biggest one and the best written one. But yeah, so that's been a long been a thing. But then it's like he beats them all up, and then he just stops and he's like, fuck Batman. And I'm like, oh Jesus, no, don't do that. Like he literally looks into the camera and just says, fuck Batman. Now, anyone who's ever read comics will know, and you might even know about it just from the internet.
Yep.
The meme of the goddamn Batman.
Goddamn Batman. So
they Frank Miller and Jim Lee, one of the two of the most revered people working in comics today, did a thing called All-Star Batman and Robin.
Yep.
All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder was the full title. And it was like a reboot. It was basically the way for people who know about it, the Marvel Ultimates universe is like a reboot of the Marvel universe, where they went, you don't need to know all the backstory. We're going to go back and tell everything. We're going to tell everything from scratch. There will be no massive 50-year backlog. You can literally just join in and start reading it.
Yep.
And that ran for 14 years and stopped. And that's a self-contained Marvel universe. It's actually a really good read. If you like the films, you'd like to read some of the comics, but you don't want to read everything, that's a really good place to go. And they tried to do the same thing. DC tried to do the same thing with their All-Star lineup. So they did All-Star Superman, drawn by Frank Quitely. Really good series. But then they did this thing. And in the very first episode, after Robin's parents get killed, and Batman shows up, and
spoilers.
Spoilers.
Spoilers, obviously.
Batman shows up, throws him into the Batmobile, and they go and they drive off. And Robin is sitting there in the car crying because Batman's basically like, oh yeah, whatever. And I have the image here in front of me, right? Because I don't want to quote this incorrectly. And bear in mind, this is directly from the comic.
This is the words out of Batman's mouth.
Yes. So Robin says first, "Who the hell are you anyway, giving out orders like this?" And Batman says, What? Are you dense? Are you retarded or something? Who the hell do you think I am? I'm the goddamn Batman. Anyway.
World's greatest detective.
World's greatest detective, yes. And this became a running joke across, like it's been lampooned by other Batman writers. It's been lampooned numerous times. Like it's stupid. And the whole fuck Batman thing was essentially up there. But the fact that there's no color in any of the Teen Titans trailer, and I'm like, it's just all bleached out. It is Zack Snyder to shit. It is just there's no color, and that's my big problem with it. It's like it's more and more my problem with DC. It's like okay, Batman should be dark. Batman should always be dark. 90% of the Batman comics are done in grays, pastels, blacks. You know, it's very much like a muted color tone, and that makes sense. Teen Titans has always been very bright. All the characters are meant to have their own distinct color.
Orange-skinned creatures. In fact, because there's a goth girl there. How do you know which one's the goth girl if they're all goth?
And even when she's a goth girl, she's normally covered all in purple. And
that's
it's
true.
A very bright, vibrant purple. And there's no color. And then in the same week, they also released a trailer for the Teen Titans film, which is based on Teen Titans Go, which is a very kind of comedy, cartoony, like super young audience thing. And I watched that and I went, I just want to watch that one. I don't give a shit about the series. I want to watch that because that actually looks like the Teen Titans.
Yeah.
Like even when they were dealing, like the Teen Titans comics always dealt with very kind of fucked up issues. But they were aimed at young audiences. It was like, look, someone like one of their best friends dies. And it's about a group of teenagers dealing with the fact that one of their best friends has been killed. And they get killed in an arbitrary shooting. So it was even in one of them, it was like, okay, well, this is kind of, relevant for kids in America. It can be something that they can identify with. And at least it's addressing something of, there's one point where Robin finds out that there's someone else who comes to stay with the Titans. And Robin finds out that at one point they were abused, and Robin basically has to be held back by Superman and Batman.
Right.
And he gets talked down by Batman because Superman gets in his way because they realize he's found out and he's going to go kill the guy.
Right.
Because like Robin has no chill in the Teen Titans, but they assume he's gonna go kill the guy, and Superman gets in the way, and Robin looks at him and he goes, "I trained under him," and he points at Batman. He's like, "Do you really think you can stop me?" And Superman gets out of the way. And I was just like, "That's brilliant. That's exactly what it should be like." But it's that whole thing of them like learning to deal with stuff, and it's a very good. It's a very well-written series, the comic books, like to be aimed at that kind of young teen, mid-teen audience. That's really good. But this thing just looks terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not really arsed. Yesterday we got the Shazam trailer.
Yep.
Which actually looks like it could be fun because they're doing the correct thing and not taking it seriously, because you never meant to take Shazam seriously. It's about a 14-year-old kid who can turn into Superman.
It's the movie.
He never takes it seriously.
It's the movie Big, but
with superpowers.
With superpowers. Like, there's no way to take it seriously.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I looked at it and I went, tonally, that's correct. And I just hope that the film matches that. Like, that it's not another Suicide Squad. Then today we had the trailer for Aquaman. So
for Shazam, does the kid age up in the comics? Like, do they have to deal with him going through puberty?
Yes.
But
there is literally a line in one of the JLA books where they're like, okay, we need to pair up, and because in the books, Billy Batson, the guy who can turn into Shazam, is 10.
Okay.
Right? He starts off as 10. I think they've cast him as 13 or 14 in this, just to age him slightly.
Yeah.
So it's like again, I don't know if it's like it's a working thing or whatever, because then he's probably played by a 17-year-old because it's Hollywood. But but there was a famous panel in one of the comics where it's like, okay, Batman's like, we got to pair up. I know Superman's like, we got to pair up, and straight away Shazam's like, I'm with Paragirl, and then it's like, so who famously has the tit window.
Yes.
And just straight away you just see it just cuts over to Batman and Wonder Woman, and Batman's like, I see Billy sit puberty, and Wonder Woman's like, it's just like instant, like. So they do reference it in the comics and stuff like that. But tonally, it looks exactly correct. It looks like it looks like it's trying to have fun, which is exactly what that's meant to be. And then today we had the Aquaman trailer, and the Aquaman trailer was like, okay, yeah, it looks like it's more kind of bordering in the territory of Wonder Woman and Shazam, which is a good thing. I just really hope DC don't go near any Batman or Superman stuff for the next few years. Just ignore the pair of them for like the next 10 years. Just fuck off. Stick them in a box. Focus on the other stuff. Focus on their other roster. Because even Marvel did that when they're starting off. They went like, let's go with the Hulk and let's go with Iron Man.
Yeah.
There were two characters that could stand on their own, but they weren't the be-all and end-all. Like, the be-all and end-all in the Marvel Universe is Spider-Man, it's Captain America.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't go near those until they had established the others. So sorry, I know that was a bit of a sidetrack, but it was just something that has popped up because San Diego Comic-Con is this week. Like,
it's true, and like honestly, there was a time where you could say, "Who the fuck is Iron Man? Who the fuck is Thor?" Like, the idea of that now seems insane, but like there was a time where I barely knew Thor was a comic book character.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, like the gas thing is that the Thor and the Arthur Curry. There's been a few different Aquamans. The Arthur Curry version of Aquaman are essentially the same character. They have been for a while. The Ultimates version of Thor, and the Ultimates version of Thor is what they've turned him into in the films.
Yeah.
So it's like even one of my friends said it today when the trailer went up. He was like, "Oh, look, Thor 2.5," and I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much is. Like it's what it seems to be." But I mean, Jason Momoa is a good actor. I'll watch it. But I'm hoping that the tone of these trailers is actually reflective of the films, not a Suicide Squad job.
Well, let's hope it is, and let's hope that they don't react from these trailers and then try to make changes at the last second. No, people like that. Maybe we should have a little bit more. He's already shirtless for 90% of it. Let's see if we can get that up to 95.
See, the thing is that the Teen Titans series is already like half filmed.
Yeah.
So I know they can't really fix that. And the Shazam and Aquaman films, people are reacting positively to them, but they're not like losing their shit because they've been burned so much by DC in the past. They're just going like, no, these look good, and that's fine because then they won't change it. They're like, people aren't directly pointing at one thing or another. They're just going, yeah, that seems fine. Tone was good, cool, and that's it. Like, so what are your specific films? Go on.
My specific film, I was going to say. I did a super weird one. I read the sequel to Beetlejuice. I found they wrote Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian is the sequel that never got made, and I just read the screenplay.
Fantastic.
And it is insane, and it is so weird because obviously, famously, Beetlejuice is only in the movie for 20 minutes in the first movie.
22, wasn't it?
22, something like that. Some tiny amount. Like he is this trickster character that pops in and pops out, but like he is the force that everyone is reckoning with. He's not there. Where this one opens on him in his house and he's got a job as a janitor and like he's got a girlfriend and stuff, and it's just so weird to start with him. And it's also really weird because I had forgotten that there was years and years of the animated series of Beetlejuice. They used to do the animated series for The Mask and for Beetlejuice, and was there a RoboCop animated series? They picked
No, it was a TV show.
Oh, was it a TV show? They picked
It was a TV show.
Like, these are not movies aimed at kids. They're wacky and stuff, but like The Mask and Beetlejuice are wacky, mature audience comedies. Like
I did see a great thing recently though of the whole thing of like RoboCop it was actually a thing today I was watching, whereas RoboCop is probably the best telling of the return of Jesus Christ ever.
Yes, actually. It's an amazing... Yes, absolutely.
The savior who gets like cast down and comes back and saves mankind. It's like, interesting.
They have a statue of him in Detroit now. It's amazing. There is as a brief aside, go look it up on YouTube. There is some group of people financed a thing where they got like hundreds of movie makers to all make 5 minutes of RoboCop. So there is a feature-length movie where every 5 minutes the
tone shift.
Yeah, the production company switches and all the actors shift, and sometimes it's comedians and sometimes it's animated and sometimes it's like played straight, and it is some of the scenes in there are some of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Okay, I gotta watch that.
Yeah, it is amazing. But I read the Beetlejuice sequel, and it's just so weird. And like there is a universe out there where this exists. There's a universe out there where I'm just straight talking about Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian and how it's a shitty sequel and how it ruined the character.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
It is just such a weird thing to get a glimpse. It's like, Eric Stoltz was originally cast as Marty in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And there's all this famous footage out there. Before they got Michael J. Fox, they started shooting, so they've got all these scenes shot where it's a completely different actor. It's a ginger lad, Eric Stoltz. And it's him in the diner, and it's him looking at, like, the doc is looking at his watch, and he's like, "We gotta go back, Marty," and it's the wrong person. Like, there is an alternative universe out there where they never got Michael J. Fox. He couldn't get out of his contract with whatever sitcom he was on.
I have a weird thing like that where with Reaper, the TV show that my celebrity lookalike is in, Tyler Labine, and the pilot for that is exactly the same, except there's a different female lead in it.
Right.
But, like, I didn't know about the pilot. I saw the one that Kevin Smith released because he directed the pilot for it, and I saw the pilot and I was like, this is awesome. Watched the whole thing, and then I later on got the box set of it, and the box set has the pilot, and I was like, I want to see if there's something different in case it was like the Archer pilot.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, the pilot for Archer, the TV animated series, is the exact same as the original, except Archer is played by Velociraptor.
Yep.
And it just screeches instead of talking.
Yep.
But with this, it's just a different female lead, but everything else is exactly the same, and I'm like, that's really fucking weird.
They did that with
It's
Buffy.
off-putting how much.
With Buffy as well. Willow was a kind of curly-haired, heavyset lady in the original pilot, not the movie, in the first pilot of the TV show. And it's just so weird because there's bits where I can see them directing the lines. I remember the lines, but they're just directing them to the wrong person. And it's like someone paid to have themselves inserted into their favorite TV show after the fact. Like, it just looks so wrong that I have to imagine it's post-production or something.
Speaking of, they announced at San Diego Comic-Con that Buffy's getting a remake.
Oh, really? As a TV show?
Remaking this, yeah.
Oh, wow. And is that continuing with the comic book kind of series, or are they just...
No idea. I saw the headline, rolled my eyes, and was like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, remake is a weird one.
That if it actually makes it to
comes
be
fast.
made.
There's a lovely shout out in Fringe actually for that Back to the Future reference, where when Olivia goes to the alternate dimension, she walks past a marquee that has Back to the Future starring Eric Stoltz, just as a little nod of saying, yes, we are in an alternate dimension. There are blimps and the wrong people play characters. That's pretty much all you need to know.
Yeah.
What was your movie choice?
I fucking too many. So me and my weird knowledge of film.
Yep.
Like, I know more about films that weren't made or films that got fucked up than films that were made.
Yep.
I just want to quickly mention a few, and literally this is just the pitch, because a lot of these films never made it past the initial pitch or the initial kind of like, they made the pitch and they were given the thumbs up and they got a bunch of actors on board, and then nothing materialized.
Yep.
So Paul Verhoeven wanted to make a film called Crusade back in '94.
Right.
So this is he was going to make it with Coralco, the company behind Terminator 2. And this was immediately after Terminator 2, and Arnie was going to be in it. And Verhoeven was coming off of like Starship Troopers and fucking RoboCop and all the rest. So he was loved as well.
Yep.
And it was going to have Arnie and Robert Duvall, John Turturro, Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, wow.
And it was basically meant to be, it's meant to be about the Crusades.
Yeah.
But it was meant to be about how, like, he was basically, like, Paul Verhoeven being Paul Verhoeven, he wasn't going to make a film if he didn't get to criticize someone while he was doing it. So this film basically exposed some of the fake miracles, or it was meant to expose a fake miracle that the church did to try and incite these crusades.
Right.
And it's it was meant to have a big critique of the anti-Semitism and anti-Islamic thing running through Hollywood and all this.
Yeah.
It's like massive big thing on that. There was also
that movie sounds amazing.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. I don't know. Arnie and the Crusades. I definitely would have watched it. Like. There was also there'll be a lot of comic references in today's episode, because comics are kind of something that even before recently, comics were constantly being mined for films. I mean, a lot of people don't realize the Crow is a comic book film.
Yeah,
and, stuff like that.
The Crow was going to be, the movie was going to be a musical starring Michael Jackson at one point. That's how it started production, and then eventually that is one that just flashed back into my head. I'll have to look into that more.
So, David Fincher was going to make Torso at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So Torso is this like acclaimed graphic novel series written by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark and Draco, and Bendis also like did the art and colored it and stuff. And it's based on the true story of the Torso killer in Cleveland back in the late 30s, like 38, 39.
Right.
And that particular investigation involved Elliot Ness. It was actually it was the later stages of his career after the whole Al Capone bust and everything else. Now, he was only kind of tangentially involved in the thing, and it was this like multiple statewide thing that ran like an investigation, and he was involved in one area of Cleveland. But in the graphic novel, they retool it a bit and they focus more on Ness because people will be familiar with who he is.
Yep.
But it was meant to have Matt Damon, Casey Affleck, Rachel McAdams, Gary Oldman. Oh, fuck, who else is meant to be in it? There was a whole list of names that were involved. But it was during the promotion. So this was meant to be Fincher's film after Benjamin Button.
Right.
But during the making and the release of Benjamin Button, he was constantly getting into fights with the Paramount executives.
Right.
And he had a massive falling out, and then he basically went, "No, go on, go fuck yourselves."
Yeah.
But this was the film he was going to make otherwise.
Oh man, that sounds amazing.
Everybody was pretty much like, ready to go for it. And these are just quick shout outs. I'll get onto my actual one because it's also related to something I posted on the Dystropia page the other day.
Right.
Just a quick thing. Back in the late 30s, Salvador Dali wanted to make a film with the Marx Brothers called Giraffes on Horseback Salad.
Yes, I remember this.
And I honestly don't know anything about it because it's just the name and the people involved, and you're kind of like, I don't think I want to know anything about it. I think that's something you either have to watch the whole thing or just never understand what it's about.
There genuinely was a Dadaist film movement at the time, and I've seen clips from some of the movies around. None of them were done by Dali, but they were done by Italians, and lots of kind of European movies are coming out as a response to the very bleak kind of surrealist movies that were coming out, and they were making these wacky fucking things, and it was like, oh man, like just the craziest stuff, violence, like an eye full of dicks, everything was on screen at once, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, but it was literally Dali and the Marx Brothers, so that just could have been mental. The main one I wanted to mention was Vincent Ward's version of Alien 3.
Yes, so what I understand about Alien 3 was that the original script called for it to be all taking place on a wooden planet.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay, go on.
Yes. The planet whose interior is both wooden and archaic in design is the description from he had described it as.
Was it a prison planet?
No.
These were monks.
They were Luddite monks.
Ah, yes.
And that was the whole thing of them. That's why in the film that was released, they're still called brothers. They found religion. They're living in this discontinued factory. It was this whole thing of like a rejection of modern technology.
Right.
That all those elements carry over.
Man, that would have been so interesting.
So, the what you call it, the whole idea is that they believe that Ripley and her ship when it arrives is like a test from God.
Right.
And
so their denial of technology and their denial of anything that is like progressive or off world is like, but they also kind of manifest in the hatred of this thing coming.
No, but they also believe that the alien is part of the test. The alien is the punishment for failing the test.
Right.
And she is the temptation.
That's super interesting.
And it was announced, and I did post it on the Dystropia page during the week. It's been announced that it's being turned into a graphic novel.
Yes, that's right.
Because it's basically that's all being that's what it's gonna that's coming out soon. So while it wasn't made into a film, it was the film that never was. And for me, and any regular listener will know how huge an Aliens fan I am. Like, it's the fact that they are actually still going to make it is really good. But like, you can look it up online. You can see the original kind of concept art diagrams they did of how this planet would work. This wooden satellite. So say it wasn't a planet; it was a satellite around a planet.
Right.
But like, it was literally how this wooden planet would work. The kind of, there was a lot of like pre-production artwork, concept work done for it. So that's all being converted, and stuff like Hicks Lives and stuff like that. Like, there was loads of mental shit in it.
There's stuff in that is one that got really, really far into production before somebody saw the budget and just pulled the plug on it. Like, that is one that
it literally went through pre-production. He did all the pre-production and then brought it to them. And it kind of got said they'd gone to him and said, "We want you to do a film." He went, "Cool." He went off. He did pre-production work for like 2 months, 3 months. Came back and went, "This is what we have." And they went, "No, we're not going to go forward with this," because they thought it wouldn't make money.
Right.
They're probably right at the time, but now they probably would make money because people would be just like, "Okay, if this was meant to be what Alien 3 was, we want to see it."
Yeah.
And again, it was Fincher who had come off the success of his previous films that they were like, "Oh yeah, sorry, moth buzzing around here," and they're like, "Yeah, let's actually let's let him do it instead." And he did his own take on it, but he kept some of the original script.
Yep.
And that's kind of weird. It's like that and Alien Resurrection all have elements of their previous scripts in them. Like, Alien Resurrection went through 4 writers or something like that, or 3 writers and 4 directors before it got to Guillermo Genet, who's like didn't speak English.
I liked Alien Resurrection.
I liked it as well, but that's more because it has like it's it's got some very memorable scenes in it. It's not a great
Yeah.
cohesive story, but it's got some fantastic scenes. It's got a shit ending.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got like it has Ron Perlman in it being Ron Perlman,
Which
and
is
it has
he should just
it's
be allowed
always
to
a
do
joy
that.
to watch.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always a joy to watch. And then like just like some of the other stuff that they had in it, like it was just some great moments, great scenes. What's his name is the lunatic scientist? Fucking Grandma Wormtongue.
John Noble.
No.
No, that's I can't think of it. No, it is a really good. I mean, it's a weird one that it's one that people say that they don't like, but they quote. Like, there's just really nice moments in it. The kill me moment is so good.
Yeah, he's boom 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 boom. Brad Dourif, that's his name. So yeah, Brad Dourif, who's been in loads. He's in Exorcist 3, probably the best horror film ever made, and he's in he's in tons of other films. Like he's just a fantastic actor.
Yeah,
just does crazy really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Resurrection has its moments. But yeah, like that weird kind of like I'd always wanted to just see, like, because particularly when I looked into Alien 3 more, and I was like, you know, after I saw the director's cut for the first time and all the extra stuff that's in that, and then I went and looked up the stuff that wasn't made, and I was seeing these sketches of this weird wooden planet, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I need to see this. Like,
there's a fantastic documentary. I won't be able to say his name. Jared. Oh, see if I can write it. But for the movie Dune. Oh,
right.
What is the guy who did it? Something Ofsky.
Frank Herbert.
No. The guy who was going to make the movie. This is terrible radio, but I'm going to quickly. Jodorowsky's. Jodorowsky's Dune is a fantastic documentary, and it is basically about this crazy guy who's American-French filmmaker who really, really wanted to make Dune, and he wanted to make it in like 1970. Like he wanted to do it maybe 1969, after Barbarella, after all that kind of stuff, and he created a storyboard that he hired a really famous French comic book writer to do the storyboard for him, and he would bring it around from producer to producer and slowly building up kind of backing behind it and everything like that. And they were saying it never got made, obviously, the version that he wanted to make, but they were saying that every movie that came after it was influenced by this storyboard. Like Star Wars was influenced by it, like all of the every sci-fi, Blade Runner was influenced by it. Everything that anyone who saw this basically looked at and went, fuck, movies could be like that. And it is a fantastic documentary. I recommend anybody to watch it if they're interested in kind of the guts of how sci-fi is made, and like what you kind of have to pitch before you can see something up on the big screen.
Yeah, I've heard of the thing. I couldn't remember your man's name or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But like, I know that there was a documentary made and it was received. It's not one that I've seen. I will have to look into it.
Even photos of people holding this storyboard, because it is the size of like nine compendiums of comic books. Like, it's this giant thing, and you see people leafing through it going, this is fucking amazing. They basically wrote an entire comic of what he thought Dune should be, like with no text in it, just all storyboarded out. And apparently it was just magnificent. Cool.
Fair enough. What are your games?
Notable tropables!
Notable tropables.
So the most famous trope for what could have been for games is development hell, is this idea that things take a long ass time to come out, and oftentimes will never come out because the fanboys will never let stuff go. The one that did eventually come out was Duke Nukem, the sequel to Duke Nukem 3D, Duke Nukem Forever, and like to the point that the name was a joke. They were
it's become synonymous of like you will hear people say like, that's just going to be the Duke Nukem 3D of this console,
absolutely,
or this platform, and at one point it was considered what's called vaporware. So vaporware is kind of referred to as like something that's so ambitious or like has been in development hell so long, nobody believes it's actually going to be made. So for about 3 or 4 years, that was considered vaporware. People were like, "It's never gonna happen."
Yeah, it was the one where like every bad decision they could make, they made. They switched engines a couple of times. Like that's basically like saying, I like the painting, but can we change the canvas? Like changing something as fundamental as that is basically starting from scratch. How long was it in development? Was it more? It was more than 10 years.
11 years. 11 years. It's also why it's also why you hear. So for people who might not be too familiar, it's why you hear of a lot of, like, you see so many games are made with the Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
And now with stuff like Unity, it's because Unreal Engine is something that's developed and maintained for decades at this point. And people know that it's like, well, even if a new version of the engine comes out, porting our game forward is not necessarily going to be anywhere near as difficult as rebuilding it entirely. If the engine that we're working on, some lesser known engine that has more like capability but is lesser known, suddenly folds. Like if the company behind that folds, we still have the engine, but we don't have any support for it if anything goes wrong. And that's kind of like why you'll see people stick with Unreal Engine constantly.
But like if a movie's coming out, the technology is not going to jump forward in 5 years or 10 years. Like if you start making a movie now and it is held up for 5 years, honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world. You may be able to do better post-production stuff in 5 years' time, but nothing. It's not like wasted work. I genuinely think after 5 years making a game, your tech is so out of date, you're so last gen that there's nothing you can do but try to bring it forward. And it honestly, at that stage, I would just get a new team, give them the assets, and start again. Like I wouldn't just switch engine; I'd switch everything at that point. It seems incredible and like disheartening to try and keep slogging forward with it. The other very famous one is
it's the Moore's law effect.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Moore's law is basically computers become twice as powerful or half as expensive every 2 years. And it's to do with the density of processors and stuff. But that's why like the difference between the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4, actually no, PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 4, which are roughly 5 years apart. From the end of the PlayStation 2 development cycle to the start of the PlayStation 4 development cycle, it's about 5 years, and there's a huge jump. Because there was like 3 iterations of Moore's law in there. Yeah,
I bet you could play. Like I bet the controller for the PS4 is nearly as powerful as a PS1. Like
probably.
The other one very famously is Half-Life 3, which is never coming out. Like it's but I also have
it's become a joke. That's the thing.
Actually, we can announce it on this podcast. We've got the scoop. We've got an exclusive. We're going to announce Half-Life 3.
Sure, we may as well.
But first of all, it's never coming out. And secondly, I have to believe there's someone working on it right now. I have to believe there's a team in Valve who are on a...
But there's not. Valve themselves have come out and said that there's not. The guy who was writing it came out and basically went, this is what the story was before we stopped working on it. There's a fan project where people are trying to use the Half-Life 2 engine to rebuild Half-Life 3 based on the story that your man released.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's super interesting. So we'll see that first. And honestly, if they, like, Valve and Steam are so fucking ridiculous at this stage, if a fan tried to put that out, I bet they'd just put it out. I bet they'd put it on Steam and be like, yeah, all right, quarter life, there you go, put it up there.
They don't give a shit when it comes to moderating their own platform.
Nah, they absolutely don't.
So,
the one actually I'd love to talk to you about is No Man's Sky, because you were saying that there is a big update coming out.
But No Man's Sky was released.
It is. No, let's talk. So this episode is called What Could Have Been. What they promised, they still haven't delivered, and the idea is it's still coming. So
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you're listening to this, or if you're watching the video on the day we've posted it, which will be the 24th of July, then today there is a major patch dropping for No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
And it's also being released on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And it is called No Man's Sky Next. And it is the 4th major update they've made to the game since launch. They've made a couple of small ones, but it's the 4th major one. And it's pretty much what the game was meant to be at launch. As some people...
The guy who promoted it, the Irish guy, I don't know his name.
Sean Murray.
They genuinely...
He has the most Irish name ever. He's called Sean Murray.
I believe that they put him out in front because they thought it was funny, because he just kept stammering and making promises.
Well, no, he was the guy who came up with the idea for No Man's Sky. It was his company.
Oh, right.
So he's like that company. He was CEO and lead programmer, because it was just a group of guys who decided they wanted to make a game. and it was originally only going to be console. Sorry, it was only going to be PC. So to go cover it all quickly, because topical.
He got full.
Which
Peter,
is quite rare for us.
He got full Peter Molyneux syndrome, where once he got in front of the camera, he promised the fucking world. He promised the universe.
Part of it was that, and he has said that he has admitted he's gone like, no, I fucked up.
Yep.
But part of it is you will see at some points if you go back and watch the interviews. There's certain points where because it was a Sony exclusive for console, because Sony dropped them all the money in the world about 2 years before launch, going, so you want to actually release it on console, because famously at stuff like E3 and stuff like that, where you have the indie development section, there's guys essentially undercover Sony and Microsoft guys going around trying to scout out these guys, going up and being just like, I'm from such and such a website, we're just reviewing, so what have you got,
Yep.
And they take a look at it, because then they know the guys will treat it more they'll act more natural with it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if they're really interested, they'll go, but what if we gave you all this money, and they flashed them the badge or whatever,
Yeah.
So there's all the interviews that he did for the game coming up to it were with official Sony stuff.
Right.
And several times I distinctly remember, because yes, he did straight up go, oh, will there be multiplayer? Yeah, but it's incredibly unlikely you'll ever see someone. Because statistically, it was incredibly unlikely until people actually... But people being people, they were gonna no, we're gonna make it happen, and it was like, it didn't work.
Yeah, I love how much he couched that, because if it was true multiplayer, we were like, absolutely. But he was like, you'll never do it though. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
But that's the thing. They put in it was 18.6 quintillion planets. They were like, there's no way you'll ever get people on the same planet. So it was probably going to be stealth patched in at some point.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, see, look, you finally ran into someone. Oh, what are the chances? It's taken a year, and all this type of shit. But there's several times in interviews where someone from Sony will be sitting there going, and I hear it'll have this, and you'll see him kind of go, I wouldn't necessarily say that now. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? You can see it in his eyes. There's this panic of going, why are you promising that? But because they were so beholden to Sony, he didn't want to say anything.
Yeah. The memes of him where it's like him early in development, and he's like scruffy enough, but he's joyous and happy, and as it gets closer and closer to the release, he's just this haggard creature.
Yeah, because he hates talking to he hates talking to press. He said it himself. And the gas thing is that after the thing came out, a load of people kicked off, and they started getting death threats and bomb threats.
Jesus.
And there was pretty much somebody from the police in their studio for the first 2 months after launch and stuff like this every day. And all this type of shit. And yes, the game, a lot of people refunded it.
Yep.
A lot of people returned their copies to wherever. The game still made an astronomical amount of money.
Oh, I believe it.
Right? That game at one point had something like 1.2 or 1.9, no, I think it was 1.2 daily users.
1.2 million.
Steam. 1.2 million daily users. No, 1.2. It was just my arm was playing and no one else. But it had an astronomical amount of money. They could have very easily... I mean, the team was 15 people when it launched the game.
Yeah.
They could have very easily just gone, shrugged their shoulders, went, oh, well, we tried, pocketed that money and walked off into the sunset.
Yeah.
But they put their head down and they just kept working. And they cut all contact with the media, and they went silent on Twitter and all the rest, which at the time people freaked out about, but in retrospect is...
Genius.
I think it's correct. Yeah. But no, because it's a thing of there's so many idiots and fuckwits on Twitter and on Reddit and stuff baying for your blood.
Oh yeah.
There's no point in listening, because there's no point in engaging, because you're not going to hear anything useful. So what they did is they only focused on the people who were still playing the game, and they focused on what they were interested in and stuff like that. And then they iterated on the game, and then they did the first expansion, and it was now we've added a ton of extra stuff to crafting and exploration. So it was make it more detailed. The second expansion, now you can build bases, and now there's some elements of multiplayer where you can see you don't see the character model from the player, you see a sphere.
Yeah,
and you can leave messages for one another.
So we are still
a terrain thing.
We're still talking about what could be. So this could still turn out to be an absolute disaster. But the idea is that finally we'll have multiplayer.
From the trailer that went up, what is coming next Tuesday, when this episode goes live.
Yeah.
There is proper up to 4-player group multiplayer.
Yep.
If you engage, you can randomly encounter other people at trading posts on bases, whatever. Every system has its own star base that has it's like a trading hub, and there's ones on planets as well. And you might encounter someone, and you might agree to meet to join up and go exploring or go work on something together, and that's fine. or you might decide to grief them and attack them. Again, that's fine.
Yep.
This is apparently all coming in. There's underwater bases. Previously, your base is going to be built above ground, or you can build them underwater.
Yep.
The game got a full graphical overhaul, so all the textures have been gone up. I think they at launch they were like 1K textures, and now they've been gone up. Yeah, because it's coming out on Xbox One on Thursday, and on Tuesday. Sorry, and it's a free update for PlayStation. So for the PlayStation Pro users, they wanted to have that that upgrade. There's now like ringed planets, which is something that they always kind of wanted to do, but it's like you can visually see the ring when you're on the world. Apparently, that wasn't said by Hello Games. That was said by someone who was like, "Oh, I saw early access footage, blah blah blah." It could be someone talking out their arse, but apparently, there's also stuff like you. At one point they introduced freighters, so you could actually get a freighter and dock your smaller ship on the freighter.
Oh, nice.
So you could like fly the freighter around, and then when you arrive in the system, because it allows you to carry so much more, there's like this massive big 96 slot inventory thing. So you'd arrive somewhere, and then you could go down, jump onto your ship, and you use that as a landing craft to get out to the planets. Now that you're able to control multiple freighters, you're able to own multiples. You're able to hire AI crew, and then send them off on, like, you can kit them for combat, kit them for trade, kit them for whatever, exploration, and just send them out. And they will return to you every so often, and they might be damaged, they might be destroyed, you might never get them back, so on. So this is all in the thing now, but this is all stuff that was promised for launch.
Yes. What?
So the more cynical people online are kind of going, yeah, I'm sure it'll just be another fuck up.
Yeah.
And then the more cynical people who are actually happy about the launch are saying, hey, look, it's finally coming out of early access.
Yeah. Yes, that is my stance. I saw people playing it when it was launched, and I was like, what a beautiful screensaver. There's no game there. I will watch you play, and they go to hand me the controller. I'm like, I have no interest in this. I will happily watch you.
And like, I love it because as I've said before in this podcast, I'm a big fan of playing Zen games. I like having those games where I can just tune out, and it's the whole thing. It's the visual, it's the micro task thing of like, I need to gather this material to make this item. Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah, I've seen you playing Doom like that. You're like, I'll just pick up this shotgun, I'll make that demon go away. It's all very zen.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all very zen. And it's that whole thing of I like those type of things, and it's weird. I don't know, like a lot of the times I have this whole thing of like, when I feel like being around people, I'll be around people, and I'll be like cracking jokes and telling stories and having a laugh and chatting with people. But like, I am perfectly content to sit on my own and be very like introverted for long periods of time, and that's just kind of the way I am. And I've never felt a sense of loneliness in the game the way you feel it in No Man's Sky, but in a good way.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
It replicates it that when you land on the planet and you look around and you're just like, there's no one here, and no one has ever been here. Yeah, it'll tell you if someone has. You're like, no one has ever been here. No one has ever landed on this place. No one has ever been to this part of the game before. And just being able to, like, occasionally you'll just come over a hill and you'll just see something. Like, No Man's Sky is a screenshot engine. That's all it is. Yeah. Like, it's realistically, but it's immeasurably, like, there's so much stuff to do. There's so much stuff to explore if you want to do it. People always say, it's a mile wide and inch deep, but it's like, but there's pockets that can be a lot deeper if you're willing to dig. And that's kind of, you choose your own level of involvement in it.
There is an appeal to it, which is exactly what you said, that kind of loneliness, that idea of just going out and being somewhere that no one else has been. And I think it could only happen post Minecraft. There's something really, really nice about Minecraft. Even if we're playing on the same server, just pick a direction, start walking, keep walking for an hour, find a spot and go, this is where I am going to do things. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but this is where I'm going to do it.
And you know that you can look around and you can be like, no one's been here.
Yeah.
No one's been here. No one's been to this part of the map, and I can just do my thing, and who knows what I'll find.
Yeah.
And I'll explore around. And though Minecraft does have a structure that at certain radiuses from spawn there will be certain things and all the rest, but like what I like about No Man's Sky is the whole thing of like, visually it looks amazing. I think even like, okay, there's a graphical overhaul coming, but it just looks really pretty. I think that's a big part of Zen games for me. It's like visually. Like if you think of Journey looks amazing.
Yes.
And again, it's that whole thing of the music and like the whole soundtrack for No Man's Sky is done by 65 Days of Static, which are a great band. And it's like, it's that whole, it just feels great. and even the fact that I'm shit at flying the spaceships, I cannot steer those spaceships to save my life. But that again, that feels like, it feels like it's weird. I don't know how to fly a spaceship. I don't know how to fly an aircraft, but it feels like this is an actual, like, this is how a spaceship would operate, or how an aircraft would operate, because I have no fucking idea what I'm doing when I'm in it. Like, a dogfight is not me chasing a guy around. A dogfight is me sitting and rotating to try and find my target and shoot him. And if he shoots me too much, I just quickly open and shield up and then go back to shooting him, because I'm like, I can't fly and shoot at the same time. Not in a 3D space. I just can't do that.
Do a barrel roll.
In certain fights, if you're close enough to a planet, if you go into the atmosphere, they'll follow you, and then you're on a 2D plane. It's a bit easier to get in to win the fight then. But whether they actually manage to get it or not, we'll see. But,
what was your game choice?
I just wanted to quickly mention a few. One of them, I'm surprised. I actually wrote it down. I'm surprised you didn't mention it, which was Silent Hills.
Yeah, I figured that I'd give it a rest for a couple of episodes.
Because we already mentioned Del Toro.
Yeah.
It's Del Toro and Hideo Kojima. And they PT, which is the
playable trailer.
Yeah, playable trailer, which is their version. It was just their thing of, look what we could make.
Honestly, the
other ones that I'm interested.
Go on. I was just I watched every video of somebody playing PT. Honestly, that by itself was such a perfect little thing. I think more games companies should do that. They just put out a little weird little thing. Honestly,
rumor has it.
Go on.
Rumor has it that was part of why Kojima was fired.
Because he put that out. Really?
Yeah, because he never told Konami he was making it.
Ha ha! That's brilliant.
Kojima being Kojima, he was doing the whole thing of, like, it's easier to ask forgiveness than beg permission. So he was just like, I'm gonna just fucking do it. And my name attached to it, and Del Toro's name attached to it, will make such hype that they'll have no choice but to let us make it. Is Konami called his bluff?
Is the next one Death Standing or Death Stranding?
Death Stranding.
The
Postman Pat Simulator. Yeah.
I am so holding off on that. I watched all the trailers. I was like, this is going to be a fucking train wreck. I love it no matter what. It feels like I'm going to have a kid here. I love him no matter what. But
we don't know if it's a Sony exclusive or not. If it's on console, I'll probably get it and stream it when it comes out.
Oh man, it looks
just
so fucking mental.
To see what it's like.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. No, the other ones I just going to quickly mention are about Blizzard games. So one of them was StarCraft Ghost. StarCraft Ghost was. So the Ghosts are, so StarCraft is their futuristic one. It's their it's Warcraft plus spaceships. Hence the name. Spacecraft. No, StarCraft. And the Ghosts were a unit in StarCraft, which they're basically snipers, but they can camouflage. So they're like covert ops guys. And one of the main bad guys in the StarCraft franchise was originally one of them, Sarah Kerrigan. But StarCraft Ghost was a different. Was like each of them has their own code name. So Ghost was specific to one called Nova, and she was. It was meant to be like a third-person stealth action game,
right?
Which is nothing like anything Blizzard have done before. And it went through multiple studios and multiple. Because they were farming it out because they're like, we don't know how to make this. So, and this is before they'd made all the money in the world.
Yeah.
With, I think it started in 2000. They were going to make this. So yeah, it was before they made all the money in the world with Warcraft, and then Overwatch, and then and Hearthstone, and Heroes of the Storm. All four of which, like, Blizzard have 6 franchises, and 4 of them make over $1 billion a year. But anyway,
madness.
Just thought about printing money and all that,
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so there was this. It was something that was like kind of interesting, and at the time, a lot of people like myself were very hyped for it because we were like, even back then, Blizzard had this standard of being, okay, their games were always late, but their games were always very high quality. Like a good example was when they released Diablo 2, and the expansion for Diablo 2 will be out in 6 months. And it was 18 months late.
Yeah.
So like when it first started getting delayed and stuff, people were like, it's Blizzard.
Yeah.
We kind of expect that, and it's like Blizzard have this attitude of when they announce a release date, unless unless it's really for something for World of Warcraft where they have a definitive like subscription system and expansions to sell beforehand and stuff like that. Normally when they announce something, this is what we're aiming for. This is the nice to have, but it'll be ready when it's ready. And that's kind of their approach to it. So yeah, when I first started getting delayed, and then it just kind of was like, this isn't getting made, is it? And
Yeah.
like, no, it might.
Were
I think it took them 8 years to say it wasn't coming out.
Okay. Was there ever screenshots or anything from it? Like, was there ever?
Yeah.
So there was
there's screenshots and there's like descriptions of areas and stuff like that. There's like
so interesting.
the screenshots of the character and the character model and everything. The other one was Project Titan. So for anyone who's really familiar with it, Project Titan was the MMO that they were making to replace WoW.
Right.
To replace World of Warcraft. They were like, we want to have another one because at some point
Yeah.
World of Warcraft is going to wrap up. People are not going to want to play it anymore, and we want to have a second game. And there was kind of the thing of like, so World of Warcraft initially I think had a development time. It was either 5 or 8 years. I can't remember which. But the whole idea was that they were going to start Project Titan. Would have been about 5 years ago, and the whole idea was that they would have it ready eventually. Like the expansion that's coming out for World of Warcraft next month is kind of the last one based on their existing lore. After that, then they said they have 2 more expansions planned after that, but after that they're in like, for the first time really, they're in open waters. They're like, we don't know how it's going to go now, because if you go through the roster of bad guys that were established in the Warcraft universe, after this next expansion, we've killed them all. It doesn't matter. So it's like, where do we go from here? Like, so it's kind of the whole idea was that they wanted to have Project Titan ready to go after that.
Yep.
Where they would kind of go, no, we've wrapped up the storyline.
So is Project Titan? I don't know anything about Project Titan. Is it set in like high fantasy, sci-fi? What's the?
You don't know anything about it?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So the game was cancelled about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't get it to feel like the MMO that they wanted it to feel like. They were like, this doesn't feel better than WoW. And they're like, that's the only way it's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Is if it's better than WoW. But they had been working on, there was something else that they were kind of messing around with at the same time, and they took the assets from it and they made Overwatch.
Ah, yes, I do know this story. Yes.
All the character models in Overwatch, all the champions in Overwatch were meant to be the NPCs that you dealt with, the guys who gave you quests.
Sorry, I do know this because obviously we both know the person who was supposed to be the writer on.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, I'd forgotten about that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Project Titan was what it was originally called.
Yeah.
So the guy we mentioned, Cameron Dayton, he's creative director at Sledgehammer Games.
Yep.
Working on Call of Duty World War II. Incredibly nice guy, very funny guy. We worked with him in the past, and he was also a writer for Blizzard, and he wrote. He was the guy who did all the gnome orientated novels, because they never bothered doing gnome ones, and he was like, well, I'm going to do them then if no one's doing them, and he wrote them. They're really good.
Yeah.
But he'd also worked on like StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, which is the second expansion. He worked on Diablo Reaper of Souls, which is the expansion for Diablo 3. And then he worked on Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, and Mists of Pandaria. And after Mists of Pandaria, he went to work on Project Titan. And he was the writer, and he's the guy who came up with Tracer and stuff like that.
So he basically wrote an MMO, and then it became Overwatch, and it didn't need any story. Yeah.
Well, there was this whole thing, they couldn't get the gameplay to fit the way they wanted it to. It didn't feel clean. It's always been a problem for futuristic MMOs. Destiny kind of has it as well to a degree, and then even the Division has it. People will believe that you have to cut someone 20 times with a sword to kill them.
Yeah.
Because that's what Hollywood has taught them. People will not believe that you have to shoot someone 20 times. So when you're playing stuff like The Division, you're playing any futuristic game, when you're shooting someone, you're doing massive amounts of damage to someone who are like, well, this is just not realistic. And it's like, but you have no problem when it's like elves and orcs and stuff like that. Because there's this disconnect of like, well, it's fantasy.
Yeah.
People see science fiction nowadays more than ever as an extension of what could happen.
You can drop a mountain on someone in fantasy and it will just piss them off.
Yes, exactly. So so there's it's something that's kind of persisted through a lot of like futuristic ones. Even like Richard Garriott, Lord British, one of the idiot game designers of the 90s themselves. He tried to do one with Tabula Rasa, which was an old MMO where it tried to be a futuristic one, and again it had the same issue. the kind of closest that the people come, like Destiny probably gets close to it.
It does, and I think a lot of that is because the characters don't look as human. Like the idea that you're shooting to somebody, but like even if they are supposed to be an organic, they might have robotic legs or something like that. The idea that you're just knocking like parts off them. There's kind of a thing
where they do a very good thing at the start of Destiny 1 where they bring you back from the dead. This is the very first thing that happens. You've died hundreds of years before the story takes place, and one of the little finds you.
Ghosts.
The little droids, the ghosts, finds you and then recharges your energy and brings you back to life by imbuing you with light, which is something that's come from the Traveler, the big golf ball that floats over Earth. And it's this whole thing of like, this is what allows them to bring you back from the dead, and this is what makes you stronger and allows you to do more damage. Okay, so they actually have it's from minute one they have an in-lore reason why you can take this damage where other people can't.
Hi, you're magic. Great, perfect, we're good.
Essentially, it's space wizards. Like that's
it's wizards from the moon.
It's Jedis with guns.
Yeah,
that's all. Like all the game is like, and it's kind of come closest. But that is a persistent problem in MMOs. Where it's like, if you're gonna do futuristic, how do you justify that? Like magic, fine. You know, swords, bows, arrows, fine. But bullets, oh no, can't do that. Because cinema's taught me if you shoot me once, I'm dead.
Honestly, if you put me into a storyline where I know that there's a vampire, I will actually believe that everyone can take more damage. I will watch somebody get the shit kicked out of them just because I know there's a vampire. So and I know that there's some kind of magic in the story. But if like the Division, if I see someone shoot someone who's like, you didn't kill me because I had a scarf and it was good armor, I'm like, oh, that's stupid though.
But that's the thing. Like that's probably why I like the Division so much. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like the Division is still the best looking game released. Like it's 2 years old. It's still better looking than any other game on the market. And it still plays really, really well. I get it, it's not for a lot of people, but again, it's also got probably the best multiplayer PvP experience you'll ever encounter. And if you want to move straight onto TV,
I'll do one more game on super quick. There was a game that was supposed to be coming out for the PlayStation 1 called Thrill Kill. And there's loads of footage of it up online. I would recommend looking at it. It is basically, what was the video game from The Simpsons, Bone Storm?
Yes.
Where they were trying to making fun of Mortal Kombat and all their like video game nasties and stuff. This game, it was a 4-player fighting game like Final Fight or Mortal Kombat or one of those. But
Smash Brothers.
It was Smash Brothers.
What it was.
But it was everyone was in hell and everyone was a killer or a mental patient or something horrible. Like there were all these psychopaths, and like watching the videos of it, it is absolutely made just to like be like live on controversy. It is like you play an S&M lady fighting a guy who is a insane man who fights with a leg, and it's the funniest to watch the videos of it. And I'm sure there's an emulator, like it was leaked online. I'm sure we could find an emulator of it somewhere and have a playthrough. But it was one of the only games ever to receive an adult-only rating. Yes, before it even came out, like this is an unreleased game, and they put an adult-only on it. It is so funny. I recommend having a look on YouTube for that. It is so funny. Actually, just you mentioned that, and that just reminded me of Killer Instinct. So we know the guy who was lead designer, lead programmer in Killer Instinct. Yep. And he was telling me that when that game was in development, at one point it was called Street Punks. Right. And the characters were like a pimp and a cop, an undercover cop, and a drug dealer, right? And and all this type of thing. And the guy in charge of the project was like sold on the idea of this, and he wanted this no matter what. Yeah. But like the rest of the team were constantly trying to convince him no, so they were going off and creating characters like Fulgore and Cinder and Glacius and Jago and all this type of thing, and they were like you want a pimp, yeah? And he's like, and he goes, this guy turns into a puddle, slides across the screen, and uppercuts you into the sky. Yep. How is that better than how is a pimp better than that? And apparently it came down to like a 8 or 12 hour meeting where the rest of the team were forced to leave the office until he agreed to it. That's amazing. There was like a 30-man team, and 28 of them were like, do this. Yes. And the 2 guys who were against it was the guy who came up with the idea and his right-hand man who was just his yes man. Yeah, and they were like, so brilliant. No, it's not going to be called Street Punks, you bastards. And they just kept on going at them. So I can't even imagine it. No, Killer Instinct is one of the best fighting series of all time. And the original was just so good. And but Street Punks, so no one would remember it nowadays. Yeah. It would be a joke if anyone remembered it nowadays. So TV shows, notable tropables. Okay, go on. Screwed by the Network. Again, another form of executive meddling. But the
Lawyer fucked me.
yeah, but the idea that something that they basically there's a show out and they want to kill it, and they move around. There's a thing called a Friday night death slot. That if you want to kill a show, you put it in the Friday night death slot. Nobody watches TV on Friday night. They're out. They might go to the movies.
That's more of an American thing.
It's very American.
In Europe, like I don't know, particularly in Ireland, I think there's a very great tradition with watching TV on a Friday. I think that's because of the likes of, it started with the likes of the Late Late Show, and then when the next generations, or like when our generation of stuff was coming up, but then it was stuff like fucking The Word and stuff like that, where it was like there was always something aimed at like a crowd for or there was on different channels there was different generations serviced on a Friday night.
It is very much an American thing. They had a big culture of movie nights on a Friday. They have a big culture of like sports, like Monday Night Football and Friday night whatever. So they would have these big like you go to a bar and watch sports ball. So it is very much that. The kind of famous ones are Community, which just at a certain point they took it away from Dan Harmon. They started moving it around.
He left for season 3 or 4. I can't remember which, but then he came back.
Yeah, he did. Apparently, it was taken away from him. Apparently, he didn't know he wasn't the showrunner for season 3 or 4. And
it was 3.
Was it 3? If you're watching spoilers, if you're watching the most recent season of Glow, they do that as well. They call it out in the show that they're being moved around slots and stuff. And it's a really nice thing of them just being able to say, honestly, if no one's watching, let's just go fucking insane with this. So they do some crazy episodes after that. And it means that the show that you're watching can get more insane because the guys in the TV show realize that nobody's watching. And one that was a very famous one of it was Constantine. Where I really, really liked that show, but it came out 8 p.m. on a Friday. And it did, one season?
Yeah, it might have been 2, but yeah. But your man's the guy who plays him and the character is is still being kept around. He's going to appear in a new series soon.
Okay.
Because John Constantine has teamed up with the Justice League and stuff, so he's going to appear in one of the other DC series. I think he's coming up in Legends of Tomorrow, maybe. He's coming up in one of them.
That makes me very happy that he's still doing stuff. I still, to this day, feel so guilty for liking Supernatural so much without ever having seen or read Constantine. Because I was like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, and then I eventually saw it and went, oh fuck, they just cribbed all this stuff from this existing work. These guys aren't getting anything. I was like, oh, I really feel like I should watch all the episodes of the show just to make it up to them.
That's another thing of one of those things that what could have been is the fact that there's been a Constantine sequel for the film, the Keanu Reeves film, in the works for God knows how long.
Yeah,
and everybody's on board with coming back to it, but it's they just can't get it off the ground, which is a shame because I really liked that film, and it kind of got mocked a bit when it first came out because it was an American male brunette playing a blonde male English guy.
Yes,
but it was this whole thing is it's not about the accent, it's not about how he looks, it's about the attitude, it's about how he holds himself. And if you actually, the TV series are remarkably close to the books in terms of how the character is, but then if you watch that and then you watch the Keanu Reeves thing, you're no, he did it. He pulled the character off. He has that whole kind of I'm a cynical asshole thing.
Yeah,
down perfectly. So.
Anyway. My actual choice then is kind of famous for what could have been. It was a 1999 American comedy TV show. It was written by the guys who do Rick and Morty now, so it was Rob Schrab and Dan Harmon. It was going to be directed by Ben Stiller, starring Jack Black as a detective and Owen Wilson as a talking motorcycle. And it was called Heat Vision and Jack. And the pilot's out there. It's kind of got a little cult following. I think there's a few episodes floating around. But in 1999, it's just so funny that they had all this, to imagine getting that star power now. Imagine getting, everybody who's associated with that. And they were doing it as a piss take of 80s shows. So it was like them making fun of
Knight Rider
and all that kind of stuff. And, Jack Black is, the most intelligent man in the world, but only while the sun is out. Because he was an astronaut who got caught in a solar flare. And, it sounds so amazing. If you've ever watched Danger 5, which is an astoundingly good kind of surreal piss take, comedy show. It kind of has vibes of that.
Okay.
And I again, there's an alternate universe out there where it is
Where that got made.
Yeah, where it got made, and it is as well spoken of as Arrested Development, because on paper it sounds mental, but I really genuinely think everyone involved could have pulled that off. And I would happily watch Jack Black in a TV series, like doing over the top impressions of parody of over the top TV shows.
The problem with Jack Black for me, I don't know if we've mentioned this, is he's become a parody of himself in a weird way. For me, I can't picture, whenever someone says Jack Black, all I can do is picture him going, and I'm just like, no. Like, some of his, like, I still maintain the best comedy that he's ever done is Shallow Hal, where he's the straight guy.
Yeah.
And it's because he's got good, like, if you go back and you watch him in, like, before he made it big, like, he's in the Richard Gere film The Jackal.
Is he?
And yeah, he's the guy who builds the railgun mount for him and stuff like that. He's just an engineer, and he's just kind of like, he's got a bit of a mouth on him, but that's about it.
He's in Mars Attacks as well, as like a brutish soldier character. Yeah. And I remember watching it a couple of years ago, staring at him, waiting for him to do an eyebrow movement, or waiting for him to do them. And I know he doesn't.
He's in what's called? He's in The Neverending Story 2.
Is he?
He's the bully in that. Yeah, he's the bully in it. And it's like he has acting ability.
Yep.
He undoubtedly has acting ability, but they put him in stuff and they're like, okay, just be yourself. And it's like, but in his own head, I know for a fact he's going, well, they don't mean be myself, they mean be that version of me. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe back in 1999 I would have been very happy to watch it, but now, no.
It is exactly the kind of comedy I miss, of it just being straight parody. I really liked Hot Rod by the Lonely Island guys. I really liked MacGruber, that movie where he's the piss take of MacGyver. Yeah. And there's a bit every time in MacGruber there's an explosion, they put a cougar scream over it. So it's like, wow, and it's this every time they do it. It's so over the top, and I love it so much. I would have been so happy with this. It's called Heat Vision and Jack. And I am so amazed that it didn't get picked up, and so amazed. I know that stuff gets cancelled all the time. I know that stuff gets cancelled throughout every step of the way. I'm amazed anything gets made at all. But this, to me, like, I haven't seen the pilot of it, was such gold. Actually, there's a really funny story of a TV show that got made called, I think it was called Puchinsky or something like that. And it was about it was just after, like, Alf had become famous.
Okay.
And it was a tough cop who dies and comes back as a dog and has to solve crimes with his previous partner. So it's a talking dog puppet. Okay. And I think maybe they started shooting it, and it really, really famously got all the way through and got on TV. And the executive for, like, NBC or whoever it was sat down and started watching TV, saw this come on, watched the first half of it, and rang the network and said, "Get this off my screen." And it didn't even finish its first episode. They had to cut. They had to cut to something else. But apparently, it was so bad. He was just like, "What the hell is on my screen right now? You got to get this off." And it is famously the thing that just didn't even last one episode. Oh man, I have to dig that up.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. What was your choice for TV?
So there's another comic book reference.
Go on.
So it was a comic book. It was initially to be adapted to a film, and then more recently, because of budget constraints, they were like, "We'll never be able to do this in a film. You'll never be able to get backing." It was going to be an animated TV series. It's Transmetropolitan.
Yes, absolutely.
So for people who don't know, Transmetropolitan is a comic by Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson, I think his name is, and it's based in the future. And you don't know when in the future, because they don't know when. They don't know what year it is. It's probably one of my favorite little details in the thing was that whole, like, of world building. There's probably one of the best comics I've ever read for world building. It's a 60 issue thing. It runs for 5 years, and it's set for 5 years in the actual comic, as far as I remember. Right. Years. And it's about a guy called Spider Jerusalem.
Sorry, just on the thing of them not knowing when the future is, it's because they've lost track of time at some point, and they have the event.
Yeah, I'll explain that now. So it's this guy called Spider Jerusalem, and he's a gonzo reporter like Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson is the primary influence for this character. He does all the drugs. He gets involved in all types of shenanigans. he is obsessed with weaponry, but it's non-violent weaponry in a weird way. It's because the future he has a gun that basically when he shoots you, you shit yourself. But it leaves no. It's called a bell disruptor, and it leaves no detectable trace of its use and stuff like this. And he famously uses the set. It has multiple settings, and he famously uses the setting rectal volcano on the president of the United States in it. So he's a journalist. He's written a book. He's retired up into this place he just calls The Mountain, and he has a house up there. And his publisher rings him going, "You still owe us a book. If you don't give it to us, we're suing you. But your contract was originally for a book." So he's like, "Fuck this." So he goes down to an area just known as the city, and it spans most of like it's basically LA, but up to as far as like San Diego, and it goes further up. It covers like most of the seaboard. And there was an event known as the event. And it's weird because I just commended its world building. This is all on purpose that they're obtuse about this, because the whole idea was when the event happened, it wiped the majority of electronic data. So stuff like medical knowledge and a lot of that was still retained because it was written down in textbooks. It was in physical form that they still had. But anything like the majority of record keeping for like day-to-day records were digitized by that point, and they were all lost. Now, for an amount of years, it was like this, and then they finally got technology back to where it should be. Excuse me. But nobody knows exactly how long has passed. No one can agree on it.
Yeah.
So whenever they have this thing in the city where they have the Star Trek version of like replicators and stuff like this, and there's basically a thing in it where all the signs, there's a department in the city municipal works that has to go around every year and change the signs in different locations, because a sign doesn't say in 1982 such and such happened.
Yep.
Because they don't know what year it is, so they don't know what year it was when something happened. So what it does is, here 33 years ago such and such happened, and then the following year someone has to come along, remove the old plaque, create a new one that says here 34 years ago, and this happens over the entire city. And it's just such a nice little thing where they're like, they don't know what happened. Like, even the actual event itself is that nobody's quite sure what it was, because records are fucked.
Yep.
So they're not quite sure what caused it. They believe it's something linked with the power system that's distributed from the sun. They found a way to harvest solar power directly, not just with like photovoltaic panels. They've managed to do it with a different way. So they're like, they think it's something to do with that, but they're not sure because the records are screwed. Spider Jerusalem is about 5'8". He's completely bald. He wears a pair of shades that are also a camera. There's like a circular red lens and a rectangular green left lens.
It's evocative of the 3D glasses with one different coloured on each side.
Different shapes and stuff. Yeah. And this was like, he basically gets involved the first year's worth, so the first 12 issues, where there's kind of like a lot of like, there was a little short arc about him returning to the city and getting his first big story, and that was kind of the big deal because he was writing for a paper that was like the biggest paper in the city, and suddenly everyone was like, holy shit, he's back. And it's about him like investigating stuff. And then when it goes into the second year, you get the main storyline, which then continues for the remaining 4 years of the 5-year run.
Yeah.
And it's about a presidential election, the guy who wins, and the fallout of it all. And
as a TV series, just the world, just like introducing that world seems like it'd be so much fun.
It'd be so hard though. Like, so the whole idea of the city is that the city is huge.
Yeah.
It is hundreds of miles long. It is thousands of square miles, tens of thousands of square miles.
Yeah.
There is like I can get myself turned into a dolphin for the weekend, and I can spend the weekend swimming around in the bay. You get people who are like constantly like body modding themselves. There is a fast food chain that grows cloned human meat, so it's never sentient. So it's fine to eat it. It's the restaurant chain is literally called Long Pig.
Nice.
There's entire like stretches of the city for miles where the police can't go into because they're too fucked up.
Yep.
There was actually an alien crash. There was the bodies recovered, and then there's a group of people who use the DNA from that to modify their own DNA, and they become these alien human hybrids. And his initial story when he returns to the city centers around them. and there's a whole big thing. It's completely fucked up. It even does like specials where it's just showing you the advertising and how messed up that is, or showing you the like he's walking around and he's visiting the different communes that live within the city.
Yeah.
And the weird way people exist. And it's like it's an assault on the senses when you read it. Every panel is crammed with detail. So many little references, so much detail just slammed into it. And one of the biggest fans of the series is Patrick Stewart.
Right.
And Patrick Stewart 10, 15 years ago looks a lot like Spider Jerusalem.
Right.
Spider Jerusalem is bald, clean shaven, the whole lot, but would just be same build as Patrick Stewart, but was covered in tattoos. And all these different tribal ones all over him. And Patrick Stewart wrote the introduction, I think it was either for the third or the fifth graphic novel in the graphic novel series of Transmetropolitan. And he even offered to play he even says in his foreword, he's like, were this ever to be made into a film, I would happily play the role. So much so that his own production company was trying to get funding to make it into a film.
That's amazing.
With Warren Ellis's backing, and they just couldn't get the money because they were like, to make the city would cost so much money. They were like, there's no way we could do this.
Yeah.
So like, what about an animated TV show? Because if it was animated, like it's already comic form, you've essentially have your storybook there.
Yeah.
You have your storyboard, so you could build it from that. And when it was last, like this was like 2010, 2011. At the time, Tim Roth was voiced.
Oh, nice.
Was attached to voice it.
I love Tim Roth.
I love him as well. I think he's great, but it just doesn't look like it's happening.
Mm.
It's a shame, but I'm also kind of glad. Like those books are very much like when you read them. I would suggest people like have a look at the first few. Sure, you could pick up the first graphic novel for like a tenner.
Yeah.
Have a read of it, and if you like it, definitely get the rest of it because it very much starts as a means to continue. But it is one of those things that it's super enjoyable when you're able to just sit there with the book and just pore over each image and see all the little granular details that are in it.
I would take the team and get them to make something original. I think there is a form change going from the comic to the TV show. I'd love to see what everybody involved would make. But yeah, it seems like the translation would be... maybe it's like Constantine to go to Supernatural. Like Supernatural works as a TV show because it is from the ground a TV show. And like it doesn't have to contend with, as you say, 50 years of history of comic books, and it can move and change as it needs to. It'll be a super interesting one though. I love it just for the world, and it'd be so interesting because you would have to do so many episodes setting everything up, and then immediately start doing some bottle episodes, some really small episodes where they're nearly all taking place in a bar. Just to
that's kind of, I mean, like the original comic series kind of lent itself to that, where it had these episodes where I had these issues where he was just sitting in front of the telly and he was watching stuff happen in studios. Like that was kind of already there. And every so often he'd have a party in his house, and again there'd just be people at the party in his house. But as a bottle episode for something that big, again that kind of works. I mean I imagine at some point it will actually be licensed. I find it hard to imagine that like a series is revered as that, because it's one of those ones. It's not associated with either of the big two, even though I think it was DC. I think it was DC Vertigo. But I mean, it was never really like associated. It doesn't fit into the DC universe. It's not in the Marvel universe. It's not in any established cinematic or comic book universe. It doesn't tie in with any other comics. It is very much standalone, and there's there's a like it's one of those ones that people always kind of go like it kind of like the way we go spoilers, obviously, as we've said before. When people mention like the greatest comics of all time, that Transmetropolitan and the Art Spiegelman graphic novel Mouse are kind of and obviously those two.
Yeah.
You know, like, and obviously, and you get mentions of V for Vendetta, you get mentions of Watchmen, but like the kind of the top 5 comics of all time, for like in terms of just kind of, if you were to survey everyone and just average out the results, the top 5 would be Mouse, Transmetropolitan, V for Vendetta, fucking what's it called?
Probably Watchmen.
And the 5th one, I'm not too sure. There'd be arguments, there'd be fights over the fifth one.
Yeah, something like the Killing Joke and the Long Halloween would split the vote or something like that, and you wouldn't
Yeah, I think it'd probably be the Killing Joke by a bit, but like the recent terrible film might have soured people on that. But yeah, so like it is one of those ones that's just kind of revered, or not revered. I suppose a lot of people I don't think would be too pushed if it was adapted, but a lot of people are kind of like, I kind of prefer the way it is. But I understand why they did adapt it.
If they did adapt it, I would hope that they would do something weird with it, like something weird with that translation, which probably would like give fans a little bit of pause. But again, I just finished watching the second season of Glow, and it's Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. They just do an episode where they finally found their footing, and they do like, this is what they put out as the show. So they do a full wrestling episode where it is slightly shitty grainy camera. It's not widescreen. Everyone's playing their characters, everyone's doing their bits, and they put adverts in the middle of it all. And it is hilarious, and I would love to see, if they were doing that translation, that the third episode is something weird, the seventh episode is something very weird. Yeah, it'd be an interesting one.
That's the thing. I think like something like Transmetropolitan, where you have such an in-depth, deep world, could actually be adapted for something like, I think again it comes down to this thing of like the era of Netflix and of binge watching. I think better suits it. I mean, another good example is Altered Carbon. The Altered Carbon books, the first book came out, I think it was 2005 or 2006 or something like that, and I remember reading it on recommendation of a friend, and it was a pretty dense book. Like, it was not in terms of pages, but in terms of the detail. But that was still like a very good TV series when it was released there back in January or February or whatever it was. Like, I watched that and I was like, yeah, I am completely happy with that, and it fits the storyline, it fits the book really well. And they've managed to convey enough about the world to get it across, while still being able to leave out certain details, because it's like, I'm not going to miss that. You know, so I'm not. I don't think the majority of fans would be too precious on it being adapted. I know that a lot of the fans, because of how dense it is, a lot of fans would be like, I don't think they'll pull it off, but I mean, fair play for trying. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those comics, because it was limited to 60 issues, it doesn't tie into anything else. There was 2 separate specials called I Hate It Here, and I can't remember what the second was called. But it's like it's literally they're like little single panel images that take up half a page of like areas of the city, and then there's just a little paragraph of notes scribbled by Spider beside it, as if it was like his photo journals.
Nice.
And they work really well, but like, there was very much, when you finish it, you're like, that story had a great start, middle, and ending. It is a completely resolved plot. I really want to know more about the world, and I'm kind of glad that they're not just, you know, trying to pump every bit of fucking info out of it.
That is a weird one. Like, I can see something like this having an amazing first series, an amazing second series, and then if it's popular, a weird middle, like 3-4 series where they don't have an ending in sight, so they just sort of just mess around with the characters a little bit.
Well, no, that's the thing though. Like, because of the nature of the story, like, they could go into it knowing if they can turn one issue into one episode, then it will be 60 episodes long. And then they know exactly, they're like, this is what we have to show in each one. These are the weird things we have to get across. But then I think once they do that, I would not be surprised if that has already been done. And then they look at the budget and they go, Jesus Christ. Like, this is a lot of fucking money. So I'm like, with further progress in both traditional animation technologies, digital animation technologies, just CGI and live action. I imagine eventually we'll get to the point where Netflix themselves are able to go, yeah, this is fine.
I can see it going. Money. Cool.
So, but that'll be my one.
Great stuff.
I think that's it.
That's it. The only bit of homework I have, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the episode we were just talking about. But if you need to cheer up at all for any reason, Google Ben Affleck's tattoo. He has a massive tattoo of a phoenix on his back, and I was looking at it yesterday, and it made me happy for an hour. Just knowing that he has a full color phoenix on his back at all times makes me weirdly happy.
Fair enough. I have a bit of homework for people. Small bit of homework, and it's something I want to start iterating going forward. For the people we have out there, we do have regular listeners and watchers, and I know that, I can tell, because we can see the stats and we can see roughly where people are tuning in from. If you like the episode, if you like other episodes, tell a friend. Just share, just link them and go, here, check this out. Because just because like you will like, I'm sure people will be able to listen or watch our stuff and kind of go, I know someone who'd like this because they're a fan of games or they're a fan of films or whatever. Just tell a friend. I mean, like, this is never something that we intend to, this will be our full-time job. This will be our thing. But it's like, we are very much people who like to bounce off. As you can see, we bounce off each other, bounce off the guests we have on. When we used to do guests back when we were all on the same continent. And I am still trying to work out ways we can incorporate that again, but we'll see. But yeah, just like by telling a friend, it gives us more of an audience. More likely that people will comment on our stuff, and we'll get in that interaction of being able to like bounce back and forth, and just people giving feedback. We fully appreciate that there's people out there who will listen and watch and all the rest, and that's their level of involvement, and they're happy. And like, so when we post something on our page going like, hey, what has anyone any suggestions? What do people think of this? And they're not willing to interact, and that's fine. I mean, that's completely understandable. But like, no,
it's so easy to link a video. So easy to send a YouTube link. If you've got a favorite episode, send it on to someone. I know that there's someone out there who wants to hear us talk about porn at the start of the apocalypse episode, or whatever, the post-apocalyptic episode. I know you remember that, and I know you want to send that to someone. So do send that to someone.
Yeah, and if you can think of anyone to send it to, jump onto our Twitter or Facebook, share it out.
Yeah,
and people might get an idea and might be like, oh, cool, I'll check this out. I'll be looking for something. You never know. Everything helps.
Cool.
Keeps us motivated.
Yep.
So, all right. Thanks a million, guys. We'll catch you next time.
Have fun.
That's our show. Remember to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and now YouTube. We are at Dystropia Podcast.